Hey Riley besties, welcome back to the Writing with Anna new podcast where we talk about all things writing. In today's episode, I am so excited to have a beautiful guest on the podcast. Here is Lynn D. Jung.
Yeah.
Jung, sorry.
Oh my god, no worries.
I'm so excited to have her on. I love her videos. She's on authortube. She makes amazing content. So did you want to say hi to our listeners?
Yes, hi to everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Anna. It's so exciting to be on here. I love being a guest. It hasn't happened much, but very excited to talk about our characters today. Not to spoil anything, but
doing. No, you didn't spoil anything. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about our favorite characters from our books, and literally we, like Lynn and I, we love characters, and I feel like characters are so important in our writing journey because they are literally why we write and why we write the books we do. So we're just literally going to be going through a list of around 3 characters each and telling you guys all the details, like what they look like, how their personality is like, and the context of how they are in the book. So yeah, let's go ahead and start this episode. And firstly, let's go ahead and see your character, Lynn.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm so excited. The first character that I chose is one that I talk about a lot. So she is the main character of Moths, which is my dark academia adult fantasy set in Paris.
Yeah.
And her name is Larkspur Lee, or Lark for short. So like the bird and the flower. And basically her deal is that she is sort of like a troubled entomologist / alchemist, and she's a student at this like prestigious university for like grad level alchemists, and she's kind of on the run from her past. I like her because she's toxic, she's arrogant, she's manipulative.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's so ambitious. She's here because of her ambition. She actually really like wants to just become like the best, pretty much, kind of like Pokemon. But she has this like complicated past where she's very toxically entangled with her former mentor, like the person who taught her alchemy, and he has maybe some like cult ties, and she has this history that unfolds throughout the story, so you get to see a lot of her past and you see where she comes from and why she's like that. So that's why I really like writing her, because she's got so many layers to her and she's so unlikable, but it is for a reason. And her inner monologue is just so judgy and so
oh my gosh,
fun. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Literally characters like that are so like, when they are just terrible people, like I love them. I literally love them. It's just so weird because you can relate to them in a way, like even if you're not I'm sure you're not a bad person, but like, you know what I mean, like you somehow relate to them and like their sort of their difference, because I guess a lot of characters in a lot of books are just like too perfect. So I think it's really refreshing having a character that's so terrible.
I really agree. And I also think that with fiction, you get the rare opportunity to like, if I met this person in real life, I would just absolutely hate her. But in this book, I get to see like her inner world and her history. And you see that she's like still a human being, even though she behaves in these really like atrocious ways. And I think it's just a way to give us like a little bit more empathy for maybe people who are going through a hard time, even if, you know, not necessarily saying that we should have empathy for every bad person out there, but just reminders that we're all human and that these people still have something about them that made them this way, or just is very human, you know.
That's so cool. Are there any like characters that kind of almost reflect or like foil Lark? Lark's her name, right?
Yeah. It's not really her love interest. One of the like secondary characters who is very involved in her life is not like her. He's not very embroiled in academia. Oh, and her actual love interest, but she's also like kind of more of a hard person, less of a bad person. So there's these people who are like softer than her, and she's like, oh, they're so dumb, like why aren't they, you know, like pushing for the scrabbling to the top like I am, especially when like the male like character, who's the secondary character, who's not quite a love interest, has all this like privilege and wealth that he comes from. So she's like, oh, he's wasting every advantage he's been giving. And but you sort of like start to see that their viewpoint is not like, it's not necessarily better, but it is another way to see what they're doing and see the world, and she starts to realize that as well, and that's a big part of her growth.
Oh wow, no, that's so cool. I really do like her as a character now. So good to hear. Yeah, also more about Project Moth, which I'm really excited for if you're able to publish it soon and finish the book. But yeah, I'll talk about one of my characters. I don't know what to go on my list because I have obviously my 3 characters. I'm just like, maybe I try to like find one that like segues well. But I'm just going to talk about Max. Max, I don't know his last name. I think his real name's Maxwell, but Max is a little bit different because he is just, I don't think he's too mean, but he's mean, which again, we kind of like characters who are a lot different. And of course, Max is from Project Ghost, so he's one of the Ghost Boys, and I think I can't really talk about Max without talking about Rue, who's like his best friend, but Max in the group is kind of like, he reminds me of Inosuke from Demon Slayer. Do you know Inosuke?
I don't. I'm sorry. I don't really watch anime, but I love anime comps.
Well, yeah, I love Inosuke. So he's basically just like so hard-headed. He loves to drive. And also what he looks like, he literally has like bleached long white hair and
nice.
And like blue eyes, and he's like a big guy. And he's just so lovable in that way, and he just kind of reminds me of, you know, a dumb big bloke who is just like so lovable in a way. And I think, yeah, again, with Rue, who's a lot more reserved, he's like even physically different. Like he's skinny, he has black hair, you know, like a crow's nest. And like, yeah, he's just so much more reserved, but it's so interesting the way that each of them kind of reveal different things about each other's personalities, and how Max is able to talk a lot more about his feelings with Rue, and then in the other way, like Rue is able to actually do physically crazier stuff with Max. But I think the reason why I like Max and why he stands out with the Ghost Boys is because he's just, you know, I don't know, he's just so interesting in a way because he's different, and I think he looks like, you know, a generic big bloke, but really there's a lot of things going on like subconsciously and things under the surface, under his skin, that a lot of people would overlook, because he is very reckless. But I always think about like, why is he like that? Why is he reckless driving the bus? Because there's a huge scene like in the start of the book where Max basically calls shotgun, and he's like on the wheel, and he's driving the school bus and like crashing into all the other buses. So he's very like self-destructive in that sort of way. So he's really, really funny. But there's actually like a deeper sort of thing that again is so important to like explore throughout the book, and the growth of these sorts of characters, and how Max ends up really, you know, finding things to love about the main character, Red, and how that brings a lot about him and his personality to life. So yeah, that's kind of Max. A little bit different from Lark, but yeah, it's interesting how that sort of like subconscious is revealed throughout the plot of a story and through, other characters. So that's Max, yeah.
Oh my god, he sounds amazing.
He's so funny.
So fun. Can I ask a question sort of generally about Project Ghost?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier when we were talking that like maybe they're kind of in the main character's head, but do you like have an idea of how each of them like died?
Yeah, well, actually, I don't reveal that too much in the book, and that's something that I'm really thinking of exploring through maybe future drafts, because again, it's a novella, and I think a way to expand the word count is explaining the deaths and how that relates to Red as a character, and that kind of like leads back to how that reveals stuff about her. But definitely, there are definitely things that I know, like for example, Ned, one of the Ghost Boys, dies in a car accident, or there's a scene with Willow, who's the kind of younger Ghost Boy, who I think he ends up like suffocating in a closet, which is really interesting, but like it's kind of like very traumatic. Yeah, very traumatic sort of stuff. So I was thinking of getting into it, but then again, it's like hard because I didn't want the book to be too much about a mystery, you know. I wanted to kind of pull that back a bit, but for sure, I love how you asked that. Yeah, because ghosts have to die, right?
Yeah. No, I was just so curious, and it like struck me when you were talking about Max's recklessness. I was like,
yeah, and I think I wanted to try to, because I actually don't know how Max dies. Like he's the only Ghost Boy I don't know how he dies. So I've been trying to brainstorm that for a long time, but I think I definitely want to make it something that's so unlike him. You know, it would make sense like maybe he dies in a fire being like an arsonist or something. But no, I want him to somehow die a lot. This is so terrible. Just talking about how my character dies. I want him to die like a slow death. Like, no. But yeah, that's next. But let's move on to another character of yours, Lynn.
Of course, yeah. Okay, so my next character is Nathaniel, Nathaniel Kawada, and he is the love interest in a book that I have not written yet, but it is the next book that I want to write, and it's Project Sunshine.
I love that name.
And yeah, I've just had brainworms about this project lately, but it's an adult rom-com. Haven't really started it yet. The idea's been in my head since like high school, and then have you seen The Bear? Like
I've heard about it.
Okay.
Apparently it's good.
That and like watching that made me think of this because like somehow the setup is like a little bit similar through some twist of fate, and has just like made me want to write about cooking and food and that sort of thing. Yeah. So Nathaniel or Nathan. I honestly haven't figured out what his like shorter name will be. He might just go by Nathaniel.
Nate.
Yeah, Nate could be one. I feel like Nate just makes me think of like a young boy though.
Nate, really?
Yeah, or like a teenager, and he's like
I see.
Early 30s. Yeah, I'm like, what's the last time I met a 30-year-old man named Nate?
Nate. I get what you mean, though.
But he's like a gifted chef, and he burned out of culinary school because he had like struggled with addiction, and now he works at the main character's family food truck, which is failing. And he's had a lot of struggles, obviously, but it's made him like really empathetic, very community oriented, so he really cares about his community, and just like a very kind person. And
sweet. I like him. I like him already.
I like a soft love interest, I think. I mean, I also love the whole enemies to lovers type beat, but for like a rom-com, I'm like, I want him to be nice. So his backstory, I guess, is that he grew up with the main character, so sort of like childhood friends to dislike to rivals.
That's my favorite trope.
Yeah, so like a very like long history where they are like,
for sure.
I think I know you so well, but actually you're surprising me with this.
I love that drama.
Yeah. And for his appearance, so he's mixed race. He's like, his family like grew up in Hawaii, so he's kind of like has roots there and also in Los Angeles where the story takes place. So Kawada, his dad's side is like very, very like probably 5th or 4th generation Japanese, but then his mom's side is Korean, and he has sort of like those struggles with like not feeling Korean enough, not feeling Japanese enough, like what is an Asian American person. And he's got hella tattoos. Kind of like a messier look. I sort of picture like Andrew Koji, who's I think a Japanese American actor. He might be British, I don't know, just sort of some sort of like Japanese diaspora actor. But like a little softer in the face, so yeah. Lots of like disparities with Nathan.
So why do you like him? Like why?
I just don't really write a lot of characters who are genuinely just like decent people.
I love that's like this like trend of the whole video.
Yeah, he's very much like the kind of guy who grew up with like sisters and a strong mom, like a feminist. Yeah, it's I'm just like really fascinated, and I'm really interested in exploring his like romance with the main character and the story as a whole. And I don't know, I just like him.
Because I wonder Nate's like love interest, is she different? And like how does that work?
It's funny because she's another like kind of girl boss, like ambitious type, but
we love that.
She's definitely different in that she is like more of a decent person outwardly. She is so I don't know. Okay, so this is so hard to articulate, but
take your time.
I've been thinking a lot about like food and capitalism and like commodifying something that's a necessity, and then also how food serves us as like community bond and a cultural link, and especially like to diaspora kids. It's one of our strongest bonds to our culture is our cultural food. So I've been thinking a lot about how like someone who wants to commodify food versus someone who views it as this like pure act, like cooking is this act of like giving, how they would like come to terms, because they do need to keep the business afloat, But, you know, how are they going to reconcile that? So it's more of like a values difference. Like, she's a girl boss because she's business oriented and he's just not business oriented. So it's like that's the main reason that they clash, but they have a lot of similarities otherwise in that, yeah, they're going to bond over food. Yeah.
Wow, like I've never really thought about or seen that in a book, especially like a rom-com, and how sort of interesting that is. You know, that whole idea of like capitalism through like food. Like
I was kind of describing this to my partner and he was like, that is kind of depressing for a rom-com. And I was like, you're kind of right.
I think that's epic because you're kind of portraying that between the two characters and the sort of personalities that differ with this sort of issue. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just so excited for it. I'm so excited for the themes and to write about food, which is one of my favorite things in the world. And
Aw, that's really cool. Yeah, so
thank you.
Kind of reminded me a little bit. I'm trying to like my best like segue into like my characters, but in a way like Alex and Lewis. So Alexander, who is part of Project Orchestra, which is a current book I've been working through. It's kind of like a historical fiction about the Romantics era during the 1800s, and it's kind of about music and an artist's life and how vulnerability kind of really strikes true when you do want to share your art. And I think that is especially sort of explored in my character of Alexander. His full name's Alexander Lawler, if you're curious. But he's so interesting, and I think really he's one of my favorite characters for the reason because he's so relatable, very specifically. Like, it's really difficult to understand, and I think especially artists from different sort of backgrounds and how they got into art will definitely be able to see things that relate to them. But how I would describe him, he's kind of reminds me of Mr. Darcy a little bit from Pride and Prejudice. You know, he's like the dark brooding. He has like, you know, dark curls. He always has like a nice dress suit, and is always so polite, but is also extremely quiet and reserved. He definitely is well off. His family died in like a house fire, and his wife also committed suicide. So it's a lot of like trauma inbuilt with this sort of, this character's past.
Right.
The main thing that I, of course, was alluding to just before was how he used music as like he used art for the only thing that kind of kept him together, but he was forced into it as a child. And it's interesting because people are forced into different things, but it's usually not art. So I think that's a different sort of story with him being forced to be this child prodigy throughout his career and basically having nothing else. And then when his family dies, he basically latches on to this thing he's never truly loved, but also uses it as like a vehicle for his your sort of self-expression. And I think the story of Alex is so powerful because of Lewis, who's, you know, my other character, and that's why I kind of related with, you know, your two sort of characters from Project Sunshine, about how Lewis just, it's so hard to explain. Like, I think you just got to read the book, but like Lewis just reveals so much about Alex's personality and how Alex sees that there's like hope in the world through this, you know, sunshine little boy, in which he takes under his wing, because how they meet is basically where Lewis is busking. He's like a homeless boy busking at like the streets of London, and Alex is like, this guy's, you know, playing violin. He's really good, so I'm gonna really like help him. And through that help, it kind of distracts him by investing into this boy, you know, from his past. And I think it kind of is a story about you can never really escape your past, but you can face it through the help of others. So that's kind of why I like Lewis. I mean, Alex and Lewis. They kind of like, I can't talk about Alex without Lewis, so that's why. But no,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. That sounds like such a good project. Really? Yeah.
Thank you.
I love historical.
Yeah, historical. And they're definitely based off a few different conductors, because Alex, is a conductor and a pianist. Lewis is a violinist, so it's interesting in that respect. And they do have like two best friends who are poets, so it's kind of like an underground sort of yeah, because back then, at least if you kind of do some research about the Romantics era,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it kind of does reflect a little bit of today and how, yeah, sort of art is viewed as something not worth pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the differences between, yeah, about Alex's psychology and his relationship with art, and then Lewis's love for art and his rare, like raw passion for it, and how that
Mm-hmm.
kind of melds into, yeah, Alex's view.
Yeah.
Really hard. Sorry, I was just like rambling, but
No,
that's Alex.
no, I love it. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And
Aw.
do you have like a background in music? Like what made you choose to write about musicians?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I was forced to play violin. I don't know if it's like, my mom's like half Asian, but I think it's like an Asian parent thing. But yeah, I was forced to learn violin like all through primary school.
Mm-hmm.
I hated it. I learned a little bit of guitar now. I definitely do love writing my own songs and stuff like that. But I think music really struck. I'm supposed to be a writer, and my vocabulary is not okay. But yeah, I think it's because it's so different from writing and like poetry that it really attracted to me, because it's a different expression of art. And I think I definitely have run into some roadblocks about explaining what the music sounds like.
Oh my
'Cause I have a
gosh.
friend
yeah.
who's like, how the heck are you going to do that? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And I think that's like honestly a good challenge, because I'm able to kind of put my POV and the writing through and channel it through Lewis and Alex, and what, you know, the music means to them. You know, obviously it means different things to different people, and the way it sounds, like Lewis, for example, kind of sees images and Alex sees colors, for example, or something like that. So
Wait, that's
it's
so clever. Oh my god, yeah. Instead of trying to just
Yeah.
flat out describe the music, like, here's how it, you know, I don't know, is interpreted by these. That's so good.
yeah,
Nice,
thank
yeah.
you. That's really sweet.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, well, let's hear more about your third and last character. I'm
Oh,
excited.
yeah. Okay, yes, we're already on the last
We're already
one.
here. Wow.
Yeah, and this one, okay, so his name is just Alec, because I might change his name because some stuff is happening with this project that I thought was dead, and he is the antagonist. I tried to mix it up, so I did like a main character, a love interest, and an antagonist of a book called Ari's Guide to Raising the Dead, which was a young adult contemporary fantasy that I queried, got an agent with, and then ultimately died on sub after like 2.5 years. So this is a project that I had worked on for like most of my life, like since I was literally a child. Yeah, so Alec and the others have been with me for a long time.
Oh my gosh.
And he's still my favorite. I call him my son because
Oh, that's so
he's just like,
I love
yeah.
that.
He's probably, because I started writing them when I was like younger than the character set age, and now I'm like, you know, a 25-year-old old lady, and he's still 16 and he's my son. But he is the antagonist, as I mentioned. But although he's like the antagonistic force in the story, I've always seen him as very sympathetic. He has a redemption arc that comes to fruition by the end of the book. So he is the polar opposite to the main character. Like, the main character has fire magic and he has ice magic, so it's very much that like
Ice
classic
fire?
sort of, yeah,
Cool.
the classic opposites. He's working for a demon to basically bring the main character in so that she can also work for the demon. And the Ari, the main character, like, it's kind of the same with your characters, Lewis and Alex, in that I cannot talk about one without talking about the other. She's very family oriented. She has a big family. She's outgoing and she's really like cheerful and funny. And Alec is very somber and serious, and he's like basically an orphan, like functionally an orphan. No family to speak of, no roots. And yeah, and he's only 16.
Oh my gosh. Poor boy.
Yeah, it's nice though. He eventually comes around, and over time I plan for him and the main character to just like really connect over this like fact that they both have this destructive magic.
Yeah.
And like realize, you know, like we're not so different after all. Kind of cheesy,
Aw,
but it
cute.
really worked for me.
No.
And for appearance, he's really like slight. He's pretty thin. He uses a sword, like a saber, so like a thin sword, and he's usually dressed in like all black, even though this story takes place in the desert. So he's like, he thinks he's edgy, but
Right.
he's just a kid, really. Yeah, and yeah, he's a really very vulnerable person with a sort of difficult past, and it's another one of those things where the main character, Ari, just has to sort of realize that and reach out to him, and then they are able to make this connection and like squash the beef.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Aw, I love him. Ali, he kind of almost reminds me of, I don't know if you've read his Dark Materials.
I
Have
did
you
not
read?
know.
You need to. It's like a classic. It's kind of more like a children sort of, like in between children and YA. It's like that sort of
Right,
thing.
right. Back
But
before.
it's so good.
Okay, yeah, I need to.
And there's a character called Will in the second book who...
Wait, I'm sorry. I
Wait,
think
you
I
probably-
used that actor for like the face claim for Alec. Like,
Really?
yeah, hold on, let me see. Because there was
I
a
know
show
there's
that came out, right?
Shows, yeah.
Yeah, that's literally him. That was who I chose.
Oh my gosh, well...
Anne, are you
isn't
in
that
my
crazy?
head?
Maybe. No, I love Will. Will is like one of my favorite characters from like any sort of book, and he just reminds me of that sort of like tries to be cool, but he really deeply cares, and he's very like reserved, but also like when he needs to act, he acts.
Yes,
That's sort of like, yeah, I love characters like that.
Yeah.
You know, who know what they want but aren't too like explosive all the time.
Exactly. It's like very much a lot of the subtext, and also the feeling of a character, or like anyone who's had to grow up too quickly and had to like take care of themselves from a young age, so they're not allowed to act like a kid almost. And just how like healing that inner child almost. It's always a good arc.
That is so therapeutic. I adore, like, literally a lot of people hate like, oh, they're orphan, you know, oh, like they just try to like make it traumatic, but no, like I have such a like love. Sorry, my cat's like literally scratching herself back there. I don't know if you heard that, but that's my cat. But anyways, yeah, I love orphan stories. Like it's just like the way that they're usually so sweet, right? Like orphans are usually just like the most beautiful people because they're the most broken, and like I don't know, I love like my sympathy always.
Oh yes, yeah. Anything like with a child, I'm like, I can forgive a child like pretty much anything, because you're just a kid, you know, and you just have so much more to learn and develop and grow, and like you should be allowed to make mistakes, and sometimes if you don't have guidance you make big mistakes, and if you have improper guidance you make big mistakes. Like I definitely was that kid. So yeah, I like writing about characters who are very imperfect but are still able to get that forgiveness and get that family connection and get love or whatever.
Wow. No, for sure. That's so... I love him, Alec. Because what you said you were gonna like maybe change his name. How come?
Yeah.
Because you said some things...
Yeah, just like I'm reworking the story basically for just to rework it, to give it fresh life, because it has a very like complicated history that I honestly it's like hard to get into.
No,
sure. So just like refreshing everything and taking out some of the like the elements I mentioned, like the magic, and some of it is very like early 2000s 2010s YA kind of cheesy cliche. So just making like the story fresh but keeping the heart of the characters, and so I might just change his name, because it was literally like Alex Snow, and I was like, that's so on the nose. I need to change it. So I'm gonna give him a real person name soon.
I see. No, but sometimes like that helps as well, like kind of, you know, giving a new character name for the new story, that sort of transition, even though they're the same character, but that might help. Oh, definitely. That's awesome. Okay, well, I'll talk about my last character. She's a protagonist similar to Alec. Her name's Robin, and she's from Project Blackbirds, which is a YA fantasy that I've been writing for a long time at like 76k words, and I still gotta write the end. And basically it's Robin is a thief who steals from the kingdom, and she ends up stealing the prince throughout the book, which is kind of really interesting. And I definitely picked Robin to talk about lastly, is because her psychology is so interesting. And I guess like it kind of has to do with, you know, Robin Hood. Have you ever watched or read like story?
Yes.
It's kind of like that similar vibe, definitely inspired by Robin Hood and sort of his character, because Robin is so like she's very like angsty and very like she knows what she wants, but I think throughout the book it's revealed how much like what she's doing is for other people. And I think she kind of realizes that she wants to help others, not just for herself, but literally because she's just so selfless. And I think there was a time where her parents get murdered because there's like a magic system, and like they're mages and they can't use magic or else they're like hung. And her parents get killed, and she was about to like run away, and probably like because like just like over there, like past the kingdom is just like wastelands, and it's just like a continual sort of like storm, and she could have just like died, but something made her turn around and want to help, you know, people basically and save somehow her town. So it's kind of like a revolution story. And again, Robin is just a character that's different from a lot of protagonists. She definitely has a traumatic past, but I think again that sort of revelation throughout the book about her growth of trusting others because she hates people. Obviously, I mean, I hate people too, but you know what I mean? Like, there's especially like, again, it's hard to talk about a character without mentioning other ones. So there's this character called Harlow who I adore. She's the sweetest little girl. I think she's around like 12 or something, and she was actually born with only one arm, and she ends up finding Robin, and Robin almost takes care of her as a mother. And since she, you know, lost her parents since she was so little, it's like an interesting sort of relationship that she wants to pursue. And there's, you know, the book like comes to a climax where she's about to like steal the prince, and she's about to leave Harlow, who's the little girl, and it's just so like I think I cried like them like their parting ways, because Robin, yeah, she's realized like oh my gosh, like if I don't actually succeed, I will lose this precious like girl. And yeah, I think it's really, really cool just seeing the characters that come together and surround her and really back her. It really does change her as a person. And almost like makes her the person who she actually was and would be without this sort of, you know, prejudice and this war, you know, against, you know, the castle, the kingdom, and the prince. And also the prince is really funny because the prince, like, okay, so this is like the whole book where basically she goes to like steal the prince. It's like a cool ball because like the prince is getting like his coronation or something, and he's turning 21, and he needs to like dance with someone, and he ends up actually picking Robin to dance with. It's just so interesting because Robin had actually kind of like visited, not visited, but like stolen things from the castle, right? So, you know, the prince has actually seen her like come and go, but kept quiet and like wouldn't tell the guards and stuff like that. So he kind of somehow knew that it was Robin who was the thief. And it was so interesting just writing the scene where she actually kidnaps him, because it's so funny because the prince literally goes with her willingly. He just like goes like this. He's like,
oh
okay.
my god, wait,
because he kind of likes, he kind of like loves her, and he does want to like help the revolution. So that's kind of honestly where I'm at with the book. I'm still have to do like that whole arc of like that revolution, that final like battle, which I'm really excited for. But that's so interesting, yeah, the way that Robin gets so flustered by this prince who's so different, and yeah, how she's like so confused, like why are you giving me your hands to like handcuff you, like what, like so yeah, it's funny, like I love that sort of little
that type of dynamic where they're just like catching each other off guard. I really love that. I would eat that up. That sounds so fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's kind of it for this episode. It was so great, learning about your characters and your books and the context around also your other characters surrounding your favorite characters. But I think this revealed a lot about how we view our own OCs, and you know, the sorts of things we really want to say about our books, like especially like Project Sunshine you were talking about, and how the two characters really represent those sorts of like two warring sides of different issues. So I really did enjoy that. But before we end the episode, definitely Lynn, did you want to say where people can find you? And like stuff like that, and your handles and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm Lynn D. Jung, so Lynn D as in Diana, Jung, Jung, on YouTube. I talk about writing, books, and travel. I'm about to be traveling a lot starting in October, or September, which will be really exciting. Yeah, and then other than that, I am pretty much off Twitter, but I'm still on there. And I'm Lynn D. Jung on Instagram as well. And I also have a Discord server for writers, so come join.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely check out Lynn's videos. I love them, and I don't know, I just always love listening to your voice. Your voice is somehow like so calming and like so comforting.
Thank you.
So,
I can say the same about you though.
No, literally. Thank you so much. But yeah, thank you so much again, Lynn, for being on my podcast. I am so excited to have you here, and hopefully maybe we can do another collab soon.
Yes, please. Oh my god, I'll have you on my channel next time.
Maybe. Okay. Well, I'll see everyone soon, and thank you all for listening in. So yeah, see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.